Hello and welcome to Session 1, Introduction to the Election. During this session, we will be exploring how the 2024 elections work. Throughout this session, there are various discussions to have, so feel free to pause this clip and have a discussion amongst yourselves and share your ideas. So firstly, to kick off, what do you think when you hear the word politics? Feel free to pause and have a quick discussion. For many of you, the first word that came to your mind when you heard the word politics might have been negative. Amongst the younger generation, it is often particularly negative. What we need to be exploring and thinking about is why you might have negative thoughts when it comes to politics. Is it a personal experience? Is it recent events? Is it the current situation in Parliament? Why? Politics is important for everybody, including you. So, very excitingly in politics, there's a general election coming up. This will take place on the 4th of July. This is taking place on the 4th of July as the current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, chose his date. It is one of the Prime Minister's powers to choose a date of a general election. He surprised many members of the population, including his own cabinet and the media, by announcing a general election so soon. The last general election was held in December 2019. Some of you may be aware that the Conservative Party won this election and the Prime Minister in 2019 was Boris Johnson. A lot has happened in 5 years. In England, there are various different kinds of elections. We have a general election coming up. As mentioned, for that one, you are electing members of Parliament. However, you are also represented by other elected individuals, including local councillors, elected mayors, and police and crime commissioners. So these elections vary in their regularity and when they take place, but importantly, they all represent you, and they only represent you because people have voted for them. But back to the general election. How do they work? When you take part in a general election, voters across the UK choose who they want to represent them as a Member of Parliament. This is known as an MP. You are not voting directly for the Prime Minister. This is important to remember. You are voting for your Member of Parliament. You will decide who that MP will be and ultimately how the country will be run. So because of this, it's important you understand how the general election works and how you can engage with it. Right, let's get down to it. Every single part of the UK gets to vote, so this includes England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. The UK is split up into local areas. These are known as constituencies. This is your local area, and each constituency is roughly split to cover around 70,000 people living in each area to try and make it as equal and as fair as possible across the nation. In each constituency or local area, there is an MP that will represent those local people and at a general election. There will be lots of different candidates from different parties trying to campaign for your vote. Ultimately, the candidate with the most votes wins. They will go to the House of Commons and represent you. Some of you may already know what your constituency is called and who your current MP is. They might be up for re-election at the upcoming general election. If you aren't sure though, take a scan of this QR code and find out what your constituency is and who your current MP is. Who can vote in general elections? In general elections, you have to be 18 years old to vote. This is across the UK, so England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. However, in Scotland and Wales, you can actually vote in local elections at 16, but you still have to be 18 to vote in a general election to make it fair for all citizens across the UK. In order to register to vote, you have to be 16 in England and Northern Ireland, meaning you've got 2 years to get ready to register to vote before you can actually vote at 18. In Scotland and Wales, you can actually register to vote at 14 because you can vote in local elections at 16. We'll be exploring how to register to vote in the next session. In order to vote in the UK general election, you not only need to be 18 plus, you also need to be a qualifying citizen. Not everybody can vote in the UK elections. You can vote in the UK general election if you are a British citizen or resident Irish citizen, or if you are from a Commonwealth nation. If you're a bit puzzled as to whether you are able to vote, scan this QR code, which will take you to a simple website where you can find out whether you can vote. Why does young people voting matter? As we've explored, the candidate with the most votes wins and becomes your MP. The MPs are there to represent every person in their constituency, whether they voted for them or not. Let's take a look at this graph. As we can see, in the general election of 2019, 47% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted. In comparison, 74% of 65 plus year olds voted. Time for a quick discussion. Why do you think so many young people didn't vote in the 2019 election? What's important to take from this is that if less than half of 18 to 24-year-olds are voting in general elections, then the youth vote isn't being heard. The winners in many constituencies are being won by old generation voters, and they are likely to vote for people who will represent the ideals of an older generation, which would make your MP not very representative. So, if you want your ideas, beliefs and important decisions to be heard by the government, then you need to make sure you vote. Time for another discussion. Do you think it's worth voting in elections? Does voting make a difference? So, does voting make a difference? As we've discussed, there are around 70,000 potential voters in each constituency or local area, and turnout can vary from constituency to constituency. Sometimes areas have a very low turnout that can be low as 50%. This means only half the people in a constituency are turning out to vote. So that means half the people in a constituency are influencing the election results, which affect everyone. In others, the candidate can sometimes win a constituency in a really tight race, which could be decided by around 100 votes or fewer, which is incredibly tight. So voting does make a difference, and we'll have a look at 2 case studies now. Case study 1 is Bury North in the 2019 general election. This is an incredibly tight result. As you can see, you've got candidates from all different parties vying for votes from people who live in Bury North. In this case, the Conservative Party was successful and Bury North elected a Conservative MP. However, this was only by 105 votes, demonstrating how tight the result was and how important your vote is. Your vote does make a difference. Case study 2 is Kingston upon Hull East. This constituency had a very low turnout at just 49.3%. So unusually, there are actually more people who didn't vote than did. Because there was such a low turnout, it made everybody's vote particularly powerful. Here you can see that the Labour Party won and Kingston upon Hull East elected a Labour MP. Here, a vote in this constituency was very valuable. Therefore, your vote does make a difference. Okay, final discussion. Are you planning to vote in the general election? Why is voting in this general election important? If you are not planning to vote, why are you choosing not to? Thank you and see you soon for session 2, where we will explore how you register to vote.